Hi again, everyone. Right now we're going to take a look at telemedicine for educational purposes. So we've seen a little bit about etiquette, we've seen what a clinical consultation looks like, and what we're going to talk about here are the best steps that you should take before, during, and after an educational session to get yourself ready and really have a professional educational session. This is summarized on page 39 of the clinical workbook, which is in the resources section of the course. So you have a nice 2-page document that sort of hits all the main points that I'll be presenting here. So let's start by looking at the things you want to do before the meeting. Always make sure that you reserve the room and system at your site location following your local policies and procedures. As I mentioned in the privacy and etiquette video, sometimes people remember to book the system and not the room, and they run into problems sometimes. So make sure you always book both so that your meeting is set up appropriately. Make sure to review and share the PowerPoint guidelines with presenters. I have put the PowerPoint guidelines in the resource section of this course. They're just guidelines for what PowerPoints look best over video. So they're common things like having a light background with dark text, making sure you're using really big fonts, making sure you're keeping the screen simple, so not a lot of videos or icons, things like that. These things look the most professional over video because we often don't know how big the participants' screens are. So we always want to make sure that the text and visuals are nice and big. Make sure you always turn your system on a minimum of 15 minutes prior to the start event. This will give your system, of course, time to boot up and get prepared for the event. Make sure to hook up your laptop computer to your video conference system and complete a pre-test to ensure that the system is working. So always a good idea to have that done, maybe a half an hour or so before the meeting. Make sure that your slides are functioning properly and everything is going according to plan. Ensure you have proper lighting in the room. Always very important to have good lighting. Again, I've mentioned before, but make sure there aren't any windows or doors behind the presenter where you could have harsh light coming in, or even windows right beside the presenter. That could also be a problem and give you lighting difficulties. You should always set up and test presets. So presets on remote controls for video systems, you can set presets, and what they are is you can store certain shots of the room in the numbers on the remote control. And certainly if you're a part of OTN, we will train you on how to do the presets. But what it does is often I set number 1 as a shot of the whole room. And if I touch number 1, the camera will go right back to that shot. If number 2 is a close-up of me, I push 2 and it becomes a close-up of me. So it's a really quick way to switch between shots. So you can see we need our 3 presets: a shot of the whole room that we can start the video conference on, a close-up of the presenter and anyone else along the table that might be presenting, and a close-up of the site sign or the ceiling for that privacy shot that we've talked about before is always a good idea. Finally, you should always print out the Encompass list of participants to be used for the roll call. So when we're talking about Encompass, of course, that's the scheduling software for OTN. If you're not working with OTN, just make sure you also have a list of the participating sites. Just really is handy if you have that nice list of sites to begin with. Then when the video conference starts, you can conduct a very quick roll call going through the different sites and making sure that everyone is connected and ready to go. So that concludes the before the meeting section. Let's look at what we need to do during the meeting. So you should explain how to mute and unmute your microphone. So make sure that everyone sees when you're muting and unmuting the microphone, that they know how to do that, the people who are operating the remote. Provide the meeting chair with the event ID or the TSM number, we call it at OTN, and the list of participants. We already talked about the list of participants, but the event ID is the confirmation number in Encompass from OTN. And that's a great number to have if you're disconnected, or if you need to get one of the participants connected. You can use that event ID when you're communicating with the service desk at OTN. So it's a really good thing to have handy and nearby. Explain to participants how to contact technical support in the event of an issue, or if you want to extend your video conference time. If you're with OTM, the service desk can do that for you. So they're a great resource if you're having any technical problems before, during, or after your video conference. You should always create and move your picture-in-picture. So the picture-in-picture, of course, is the little box in the corner that you can see, where you can see the shot that you are sending to the other sites. I always recommend that you create it and leave it on the screen. It's very important because it does remind people who are in the video conference that they're not just watching TV, but they are involved in a two-way video conference. So people tend to behave a little bit better. It also helps the person who's using the presets and the remote to make sure that they have the right shot on the screen. So always a good idea to have that on the screen at all times. Make sure to raise and lower the volume, obviously, so that you can hear the other site appropriately. Ensure that the microphone is properly placed. So the microphones with video systems are very powerful. They pick up everything within about 20 feet. So if you're in a small room for the meeting, you can probably leave the microphone right up with the video system. If you're in a bigger room, definitely I recommend to pull the microphone out. They have quite long cords. Plop it on the boardroom table so that everyone can be heard clearly. So that's always a very important thing to test before the video call, and make sure it happens during the meeting as well. Click the presentation button to send your content to the other video conference site. What we're talking about here is when you click the presentation button, then the content of your laptop will come up on the screen. Very much the same way I'm switching between my slides and live video right now. If you push presentation once, the slides come up. Push it again, it goes back to live video. So you can see here, there's a little bit of variety when you switch between live video and the PowerPoint. I always say maybe I'm not the most exciting speaker, but at least I'm variety. So there's a little bit of variety between just sitting on the PowerPoints all the time. So something that you want to keep in mind. And again, click the presentation button to switch back to the live video or the people view. Finally, you want to end the call and shut down the system or place it on the privacy preset at the end of the session. So this is very important when the meeting's over. If you're not going to use your video system for a while, make sure you turn both the codec and the camera off. If you're going to use it soon, put it on the privacy preset that we've talked about. And then when someone does connect with your room, it's not a privacy breach. If it's a large event or being webcast, consider having one person control the video so the presenter can focus on their presentation. This is sort of a nice thing. If I'm presenting in a video conference and there are a lot of people in the room, I may be running my slides, I may be doing the roll call. The last thing I have time to do as the presenter is use the remote control and move the camera around and mute and unmute the mic and all that. So it's always a good idea maybe to have someone else use the remote control, and they can do all that for the presenter so the presenter can focus on giving a good presentation and running their slides. So now let's take a look at things we can do after the meeting. It's really sort of the shortest list of on our checklist. Obviously after the meeting, make sure to disconnect your system manually. So we've already talked about that. Make sure you hit that hang up button so you are fully disconnected. Place your camera on the privacy preset or turn your system off. So we have mentioned that. You may want to consider securing the remote control if the system is used in a multi-purpose room. Certainly the remote controls are the hearts of the system, so you may want to have that in a locked drawer or cupboard, and of course you may want to lock up your video system as well, just to make sure that it's secure. So that's it for our look at educational requirements before, during, and after a meeting. As I mentioned, there is a nice summary of this on page 39 of the clinical workbook. Thank you.